Welcome to the Saturday meeting for the Los Alamos Go Club. Today, let's see, Los Alamos Go Club is pay to win, yeah. Today, we're going to be talking first about moving from a 9 by 9 board to a 19 by 19 board. And actually, this game that we just reviewed is kind of a good example. So a lot of times, when you're just starting in Go, you start on a 9 by 9 board. And there are a few reasons for that. One is that it's not so overwhelming, right? I mean, there's only 81 spaces as opposed to 361. And when you see that huge board, it's really overwhelming at first, right? You like you put a stone on the board, you're like, I have no idea what this means to the game, right? What have I done? There's just a stone there now. Whereas on 9 by 9, it's more direct. You put a stone down, and once your opponent puts a stone down, they're close enough, pretty much no matter where they are, to start fighting. And so, for that reason, 9 by 9 is often a very combative game, right? You're in a fight from the very first move. And so, like we've talked about, corners are most valuable, then sides, then the center, but that doesn't really apply in 9 by 9. 9 by 9 is just like, it's one of those knife fights where like your hands are tied together. It's just a mess, and you just try to get the territory that you can, but you do get to play whole games in 10 to 30 minutes. I mean, or you can play faster, you can do a 5-minute game. So it's nice, right? And you get to do some end game. You get to learn a little bit about everything. You don't learn much about, I would say, influential styles, but maybe a little bit. So then, the next thing to consider is a 13 by 13 board. But I just want to talk about going straight to a 19 by 19 board, because that's what I did. And I think by learning a Moyo game in 9 by 9, it can happen, it depends. No, I mean, not in serious play, it can't happen, but okay. So that's what I did, and I feel like by learning 19 by 19, you can still improve your 13 by 13 game, right? The Joseki should maybe change a little bit, your opening should maybe change a little bit, but in general, you could kind of consider the 13 an average between 9s and 19s, right? So when we talk about playing influentially on 19s, cut it in half for 13s, right? So I wanted to show maybe some weapons that you can use in a 19 by 19 game, right? Just some inspiration, because Go is a really interesting game, but I think it takes the fun out of it when you're just completely lost, if you just don't have an idea of what to do, right? So let me just propose some things. You can use them, you don't have to. And then I'll show those, and then I would also like to invite the people in the club and the people in chat who have been playing 19 by 19s to maybe think back to when they started moving to that size board and what things were inspiring to them. I'm not necessarily looking for like direct mechanics, just things that are interesting to do, right? Things that you can think about doing. So let's open a demo board on here. Sorry if I were organized, I guess I would have had this open already. Cool. 19 by 19, right? Whoa! Right? If you've been staring at that 9 by 9 board for the whole time you've been in the club, then looking at that grid is like, it's overwhelming, right? It's a lot. But the more you play on it, the smaller it feels, and you'll start to feel the interactions. And so I often use like these two different concepts in Go, which is tactics and themes. And so you can have a theme that guides your play without necessarily knowing, it's not that you read 30 moves to see exactly how this is going to play out. You just know that thematically this is a good idea, right? And so that's what we're going to be focusing on a lot today. So later we can look at some tactics, some Joseki and some Sujis. But mostly we're just going to look at sort of thematic guidance. So we already talked about how the corners are the most valuable place, right? And just to illustrate that for anyone who's just joining, I'll just do it on a very small scale. As an illustration, here are a few territories. These are very idealized territories, right? But just to show in theme, because even if the shapes distort, the concept is the same. All three of these groups are worth 4 points. That is to say, they hold 4 empty intersections. But you'll notice that in the corner, it only takes 5 black stones to hold those 4 points. On the side, it's taking us 8 black stones to hold those points. And then in the center, what is that? 4, 8, 12 stones, right? So it takes so many more stones, so many more moves to hold points in the center than it does in the corner. So usually we fight over the corners first. That's usually, if you watch like professional games, they usually play in the corners first. Chadru, you said you're watching Hikaru no Go tutorials again. Nice. I never. So Kyle and I both sort of together watched through Hikaru no Go at the same time, but I don't think I ever stuck around to watch the tutorials at the end. Maybe I should have. But that's a fun little anime if y'all ever want to get into it. Okay. So again, thematic guidance. Start in the corners. So there are. I will suggest 3 different moves to start in the corner. They move super slow. Yeah. Okay. Hey, positive 4, welcome. we're doing a lesson to teach like new people how to move to a 19 by 19 board right now. So, positive, if you have any input, if you can remember back to when you moved from 9 by 9 to 19 by 19, then let us know. Yeah, this is basically a beginner lesson that we're doing today, Nico-cha. And so, yeah, anyway. Okay, so I'm going to propose 3 different moves in the 19 by 19 board, right? You can, you always played 19. You never even started on 9s. That's why you're down level, man. Well, cool. So, 4-4 is generally considered sort of a flexible move. It can take territory in the corner, but it's often used to sort of split the corner and make influence, which is a concept that we'll talk lightly about. You have no idea where to start on 19 by 19 board. You feel overwhelmed. Yeah, exactly, right? So that's, hopefully we can help alleviate that a little bit for some of our newer players. So anyway, consider this sort of a flexible move, and I would almost discourage it for true beginners on the board. Like I really think a territorial style is best when you're first starting, because I think the influential style is more nebulous. I mean, it's fun to pursue that, but if you're just looking for a way to sort of get into the game, I think focusing on making territory along the borders of the board is probably a good way to start. So to do that, maybe it's best to start with like a 3-4 stone, right? We call this a third line stone. When we talk about the board, it's like a mountain that goes to the top at Tengen. Tengen is the center point. So when we talk about going down, that's always toward the edge of the board. So even though on an online server like OGS, we're all looking at the board in the same orientation. So up is the same for all of us. Traditionally, the game is played on a board where you could be looking at any direction. So when we say down, we say toward the edge of the board. When we say first line, we're talking about the whole edge of the board, not number 1 here. When we say second line, that's, like this is second line, this is third line, even though on OGS they're numbered 19, 18, 17. Okay, so this is like a 3-4 point, and it's good for taking territory. This is a fine way. Even professionals played a long time ago. They would always start like 3-4. And if you get the opportunity, here's another. So this is a fun little move to put in your tool belt. This is called a shimari, and it's a really good way to take a corner. Now you have to spend 2 moves in the corner, which is kind of a lot, and I'm not saying you should do it as your first 2 moves, but if you get the opportunity, if at one point you had played the 3-4, later you can play this 3-5 and enclose the corner. It makes it really hard for your opponent to take that corner from you. And these stones can also sort of project power and be used for fighting later. Okay, so some tools in your belt so far. Start on a 3-4 in the corners. So, let's just imagine a really simple game. Maybe black, oops, that's a 3-3. We haven't talked about that yet. Maybe 3-3. Maybe white plays 4-4. Maybe 3-4, and then 3-4. And then maybe white 3-4 over here, right? Simple ways to start. And again, right, these are thematic plays. These stones are not being played because I've read some sequence where I think this is best based on the stone over there. I'm just saying, I want to play in a corner. I want to play a little bit territorially as black, so I'm playing 3-4 stones. It's fine. It's okay. Another thing we can look at, and this I will suggest this more as an offensive weapon, is the 3-3 invasion. So remember I said that the 4-4 stone, like I put down here for white, is kind of flexible. And so like a very typical joseki, which a joseki is like a common corner sequence. So it doesn't have to be a corner, but for now, common corner sequence. Very typical joseki would be like black approaches with a knight's move. So this move is sort of threatening to come in the corner and to maybe make some territory in the side. White comes out with a knight's move. Black goes in with a knight's move. Knight's moves are good and go. And then white protects with a 3-3. So in this way, and then usually black will do something like this. So in this way, they sort of split the corner, and both of them get some territory on the side. Very common. But if black wants, black can just hop in the 3-3 point. And this, if you ever play a 4-4 stone, you're going to get 3-3. It's just going to happen. And so I would suggest like going on YouTube and just look at some 3-3, just search like 3-3 invasion tactics or something. You're going to find all sorts of stuff. In general, so again, just on the theme of like 2-move Joseki, right? This and this. That's very typically, but most corner Josekis are going to start somehow like that. Or you can see it's symmetrical, right? So it could also go like this. And there's a few things that can happen. But the idea here is that black wants to steal this corner from white, and white in exchange is going to get influence projecting toward the outside. So cool. So some weapons in our tool belt. We know to start in the corners. We know 3-4, if we start there, is going to be a territorial opening. We know we can do 4-4, but we might lose the corner because of the 3-3 invasion, right? Thanks, I appreciate that. So let me just play, again, a typical Joseki in the 3-3 corner. This one has sort of fallen out of favor these days, but it was popular when I was learning the game, I think. So let me just show it. The game can continue in a way sort of like this. Okay? So let's say this little fight happened in that corner. So what just happened on the board? Let's just try to understand what's happening, right? So black has gotten cash, right? This is territory for black. It would be very difficult for white to somehow invade and kill that corner. It can happen. Mistakes can happen, but in ideal play, it won't happen. So this is cash. White, on the other hand, has gotten influence, and we could talk for hours introducing influence, but in general, just imagine, if white wanted to make territory with this, right? So let's see. Triple Gote says trading cash for hopes and dreams and a bazooka to pursue them with. yeah, that's good. I like that. So I said that in one of the Meijin title games where I was like, at the end of day one, I was like, oh man, black has cash, white has dreams, or it might have been the other way around. I don't remember. But yeah, so sometimes we call influence as dreams as well. And Triple Gote calling it a bazooka is sort of another thing. So okay, listen, there's always going to be tiers of understanding, and for the more advanced players, forgive me for this, okay, because I'm going to say that you can use influence to make territory, which as you start to get better, you'll stop using influence for territory and start using it for fighting. I'm still learning to do that. If y'all go back in my game history. Anyway, listen. Okay, so pretend that this is a white wall that's sort of going this way, right? That's not... if we ask ourselves, well, where are the points, right? What value does this have for white? It's difficult to see. And it starts coming into view, maybe, if you can imagine white sometime making an extension and then maybe sometime jumping out. This starts to make sort of a box here for white. And this box is much, much larger than black's box over here. Hey, thanks for the follow. Boda the Monster, welcome. Broken focus. It's an anvil to hammer the opponent. Okay, listen, guys. I'm trying. A lot of y'all have been more formally trained in Go. Yeah, welcome to the nerds, man. And maybe when you're formally taught Go, they always teach you that influence is meant as an anvil. But when I learned, to me, it helped to understand it as potential for territory, and then to later learn to use it to fighting. So I just want to introduce it as a potential for territory, right? It's because what you're doing is you're threatening with this wall. You're threatening to make large territory over here, and so in doing so, you make black want to try to play close to there, and then you can pincer. But okay, anyway, the whole point is that when you have a vertical wall, that is to say, a wall that's sort of perpendicular to the border that it's close to, it projects power, it projects potential perpendicular to it. So if this is your wall, it projects power that way. There's probably some right hand rule there, something like that. Yeah, you're projecting power away from that wall, and so you can use that for territory if your opponent doesn't take it away from you. And if your opponent does try to take it away from you, then you fight them. You try to clamp on both sides, and you abuse them for trying to take your territory away, right? So basically, if this were a wall to a house Oh, let me use the drawing tool. I've only recently learned about this. Yeah, if this were a wall to the house would be like this, with a little roof and a door and a window. Right. So this is the wall to that house, and so you're just sort of threatening to build a house like that. Oh, how do I get rid of that? We'll just hit back. Okay, now it's gone. That'll work. If I play here, does it come back? No, it doesn't. Good. Okay, cool. So just something to consider there. Now, I would like to also show you the first opening that I ever learned. It's called the orthodox opening. I learned it from Clausius. I don't know if y'all follow Clausius on YouTube or Twitch, but he's still around and teaching, and he does a great job. And so anyway, the first opening I ever learned was, well, let's say like black, white, black, white, black, something like this, right? So here's that 3-4 stone we talked about, which is territorial. Here's that Shamari enclosure, which is very corner oriented. And then black has also this 4-4 stone, which can be used sort of flexibly. And I remember in Clausius's video, he was like, usually white will just jump in because white is black. I'm getting my colors all mixed up. Sorry, y'all. Black is threatening, right? Like this could be a big territory sometime. So maybe white just jumps in. And we can discuss which side it's best to attack from, but I just want to show something else. Let's just say black attacks from this side, and then let's say white makes a 2-space extension. Okay. Again, we're not talking about necessarily the ideal play in a professional game, just conceptually. I want to show this as a weapon in your 19 by 19 games. This is a 2-space extension. So we say this stone jumped 2 spaces, so there's 2 in between, and it's a third line 2-space jump, right? And so this is very commonly referred to as a base. If you hear someone like if you were here and you ask someone, oh, what should I play? And they said make a base, this is probably what they're talking about. It's important to note that these 2 stones are not alive. They can be killed. There are ways that you can strip the base from them and you can come on top of them. So eventually you have to take care of them. But in general, it's a really good way to start a group because there's some room for eye shape, right? If they get in danger, maybe you can make some eyes down there. And there's also ways that you can jump out. It's just a nice little way to maybe make some territory, maybe disrupt your opponent's territory. 2-space jump on the third line. Excellent. Okay, so just one of those thematic things to put in your tool belt. We can also consider a 3-space jump. Now, I don't know if this is obvious. I don't know if it stands out to a beginner, but there's a weakness in the middle of that, right? Where in the 2-space jump, if black were to try to attach directly, it feels uncomfortable, right? You're starting a fight where you're kind of losing it already. But with a 3-space extension, there's some potential there. And we can go through lots of different tactics, sujis, in this area. But just know that that's there. And if you see your opponent do a 3-space jump, try plopping in the middle of it and just see what happens and try to learn from that. Similarly, if you do it, just know that it might be coming. But maybe in this case, let's say this happens. Special tactics, yeah. You have books on your shelf that devote 30 pages to that situation. Okay, yeah. See, and I was thinking about this as like, we've talked a lot about in Los Alamos Go Club. We have like an achievement board, and I was thinking like learning, let's say just learning to do the 3-space extension. Where it might be appropriate. That's like a bronze level understanding. Then maybe we learn a few tactics around it so you feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Maybe that's a silver level understanding of it if you can demonstrate it, right? And then we can go, up in tiers to like, how well do you actually understand this invasion? But what I want to point out here is that when you have a 2-space high wall, now the 3-space actually just feels a lot more comfortable. Right? And this kind of goes along with that influence. When we make a wall, we want to extend farther and farther from it because that wall is powerful, and so we can extend farther from it to threaten to make territory or to invite our opponent to invade into an unfavorable situation. So this invasion is a lot less tenable now. It's still possible, but less so. So anyway, this feels good. And so similarly, let's say for some reason the order were like this. Maybe here white could consider a 3-space extension. I'm not sure exactly, but when you have a 2-high wall already, for example, a 1-space extension feels very clustered, right? Your stones feel too close together. But we can consider jumping a little bit farther. That feels good. A little bit farther is a little bit dangerous because of this M3 stone, but it's possible. Yeah, Chageru, you with 3-space, nice. Okay, just something to think about. And then one last thing before we go, I just want to talk about over-concentration, right? So one thing that can happen is beginners learn that they can enclose a corner in this way, right? This takes a lot of points in that corner. That feels nice. But if you let your opponent jump all around the board and you get that little corner, it's a little painful, right? Even though this corner is so strong and all of these stones are very light, who knows what's going to happen to them? They might die, they might become territory, they might become influence, we don't know. It's still good in general to spread out your stones in the early game. And it'll always be a question of, well, okay, let's say white comes here. Well, can I ignore? Can I play somewhere else? Or do I need to respond locally? If you can, you want to play away and spread out. But sometimes it's better to respond locally. Sometimes you have to. There's really, it's just the best move. And so we won't go into that much right now. That's a struggle your entire career in Go, is whether or not you need to respond locally or whether you can do what's called the Tanuki and play globally. So anyway, I just hope that those are some useful thematic guidances as you consider moving from the 9x9, where you learn to fight, where to the 19x19, we need to start thinking globally. Spread out, take corners, thematically play, right? And until you start getting into fights locally, which is where that 9x9 skill is really going to be useful. That's when you need to know about the second line Atari that kills that stone, and that's where you need to know that a knight's move is cuttable, things like that. Yeah. So does anyone in Discord or in chat have anything in particular? Do you have any memories of when you were moving to a 19x19 board? What helped you to do that, make that transition?
I think for me it was mostly just playing a lot.
Yeah. I remember, someone asked me a few days ago what the longest game I've ever played was, and I was like, I think like 40-minute timer on Baoyomi is the most I've done. But actually, the longest game I ever played was the first game you and I played, Kyle. It lasted 2 days. I don't know if you remember that. We were playing in the Griffiths Hall office, and it just took us so long to make moves. And I remember like it was one of these games where it was just like I was saying, like we'd played smaller boards before, so we only really knew local fighting. And so what happened was we just had this fight that just sort of propagated around the board. It just sort of fight, and it just went all around. It was very confusing, and it took us a really long time to play.
I do not remember our first game, but that sounds funny.
Yeah, I remember it because I remember thinking about it that night. I was like, man, how do I win this ladder or whatever? There's like, how can I find a ladder breaker? Yeah, Alex Frog said you were completely confused when you started 19x19. So you started on Nick Sabicki's videos. Yeah, I love Nick Sabicki videos. They're super useful, and they vary in how much understanding you need to really get a lot out of it. But even watching one that's over your head, I think can be valuable, right? You just absorb, just watch, and try to learn thematically. I think that's very valuable. Chageru said for you it felt more vague and indirect for 19x19 play, at least for openings. Yeah. Your main advice, Triple Gote, would be to set a fairly tight time limit, like 20 or 30 seconds per move. Yeah, you're going to be confused in the beginning. No sense in being confused for hours. I absolutely agree with that. That's really good advice. And it's like a fun way to see that, if you happen to have AI tools, this would be a good way to see it. Like take 20 seconds and write down the move you would have played, then take another 2 minutes and write down the move that now you want to play. And I think you'll see that if your move changes at all, it's not going to get much better, right? Because when you're new, that thinking time is just you're just confusing yourself. You're not really like considering new variations that are useful. Um, so yeah, I agree. When you're first learning to play sort of fast. Give yourself a little bit of time to think, but play sort of fast, and you're gonna make mistakes, and that's fine. Just make the mistakes, and when they get punished, just try to learn from that. And if you don't understand what happened, ask a stronger player. Y'all feel free to send me reviews, or there are some Don level players in various communities who are also willing to review games. Yeah, just play a move and see what happens. I did that. I don't know if y'all watched my game against Alex Frog the other night, right? You did that one space jump, and I was like, I am aware that they always say it's bad form to just directly split that one space jump when you're pincered right there, but I was like, I don't have a good feel for why it's bad, so I'm just going to do it and let you show me why it's bad. And he did. He did a good job. And that game's somewhere in my YouTube or VODs or something. I don't know. But yeah.
Hey, Tom, just like to throw out there, congrats. You're the #1 channel under Go right now.
Oh, nice. I don't know who else is streaming right now, but that's fun. Am I the only channel streaming right now? Is that why you said that?
No, there are
Okay.
5.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, cool. Thank y'all for the support. I appreciate y'all stopping at Beginner Go first. I need some kind of commercial or something. But,
What up, gamers?
yeah, there's some. By the way, I never mean to be competitive with the other Go streamers. They put out some really great content, and I watch their. Y'all see me in the chat a lot of times in the other streams too. So there's some really great content out there. Um, and yeah, we'll see. I think they're going to start doing an Among Us stream with Go streamers. I'm not going to play in that, but it sounds fun. I'll watch it. um, yeah. Well, cool. Any beginners in chat? Anyone have questions, or anything else that we can contribute to the video? Chidru, you really engage your audience. Oh, well, thank you. I try. Um, yeah. Anything else to add on the 19 by 19 starting? All right, cool. Well, we'll leave it there, and if we think of anything else, maybe I'll try to like dice the video up and put them together or something. But okay, for watching me over my competition. Thank you. Okay. Well, anyway, for the YouTube viewers out there, bye.